Hello and welcome to another edition of College Basketball Talk. This is my great friend Peter. I am Max, and we are here to talk college basketball in mid-February. And as you all know, Peter, the groundhog did not see a shadow, so that means spring is rapidly approaching. But hold your horses. College basketball is still in the heart of the season. We still got March Madness. We still got a lot to talk about today, and we're going to do that for you folks. So, Peter, why not? Let's start with a basketball team that you think is on the rise, that upcoming and can possibly catch some people's eyes in March.
Well, I'm liking the Wisconsin Badgers out of the Big Ten. I mean, they're currently on a 5-game winning streak, 14-9. A biggest win out of the 5 games, an OT victory over ranked Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, you just saw they have a lot of players. I mean, Bo Ryan left, so they're kind of, people thought, right, down year. Frank Kaminsky also left, so that was their best player. But they have a lot of great players on this team. Nigel Hayes, one of my favorites.
Yeah, Peter, I couldn't agree more because they kind of started slow, as you mentioned. Bo Ryan left. Greg Gard, the interim assistant coach, had to take over as the interim head coach. So I couldn't agree more. And also, don't forget, they've made Final Four runs, deep runs in the past with players from that roster currently on the roster. As you mentioned, Nigel Hayes, the junior. Bronson Koenig, also a starter. He started last year as well. And then people like Erickson and Showalter. So yeah, I certainly agree. The Wisconsin Badgers are 14-9. They're right on the bubble, but they're certain. After a slow start, they seem to get their chemistry back and their winning ways back to Madison, Wisconsin, which is always a great place for college basketball. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I mean, you talk about those, upperclassmen. Talk about the freshman Ethan Happ. I mean, 12 points a game, 8 rebounds. He's really stepped up as a complement to Nigel Hayes in the front court.
And luckily for them, the Big Ten isn't having as great as a year, so they're still in the middle of the Big Ten. They beat Ohio State last week, another team who has a similar record to them. So come Big Ten tournament time, they can make a deep run, even if they don't beat the Michigans, the Iowas, the Marylands. If they just beat the teams they have to, and either in the Big Ten tournament or just going forward, I think they could somehow squeak their way into the tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, if they really want to make a statement, they have 2 big games coming up. This next Saturday, the 13th, they'll be playing against Maryland at Maryland, and then on Thursday they'll be traveling to Michigan State. So back-to-back big games for them. They can, they get 2. If they win both of those, that's fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't say it's likely, but I mean, if they get 1 out of 1, I mean, that's making a name for yourself. Those are 2 great teams right there.
Yeah, and two of the stronger teams in the Big Ten, of course. So I don't know, Wisconsin. They have some juniors. They have some freshmen, as you mentioned, interim head coach. So I'm really excited just to see how it pans out. Can they make another deep tournament run, or will they be just short? I don't remember the last time Wisconsin hasn't made the tournament. Bo Ryan's had that club at the top of the Big Ten for such a long time. I can't. It'd be unfathomable to think of Wisconsin not in the tournament.
It would be. So what about you? What's your team?
For me, I have a different team, maybe not on as big as a scale, but I have the Dayton Flyers out of the Atlantic 10, all right? Listen to me. Currently, they're ranked 24th in the nation. They're 18-3, 8-1 in the A10, and they are second in the A10. Now, they don't get a lot of national attention because they're such a small school, Dayton, Ohio, not a huge place, but they really fly under the radar. Archie Miller, he's a great coach, he's the brother of Sean Miller, Arizona coach, but he's got his Dayton Flyers flying high. They're soaring. I mean, they have marquee wins over 5th-ranked Iowa. That's a huge win.
That's almost the biggest it gets.
Yeah, a win against Iowa. They have a win on the road against Vanderbilt on the road. That's a tough SEC environment. Vanderbilt's a pretty good club. They're also on the bubble.
Yeah, they've had a great season themselves, Vanderbilt, this year. That surprised many people.
And also, they beat Monmouth. Monmouth might even get an at-large bid, not even just win the tournament. Monmouth is 17-5. So for me, the Dayton Flyers, they're on the rise. I can certainly see them making a deep run in the tournament. Ranked 24th in the nation. They're only getting better. The hardest part of their schedule is over, and they did pretty well with a record of 18-3. So for me, I can certainly see Archie Miller and the Dayton Flyers making yet again another deep tournament run.
I mean, you look at the Dayton Flyers. I mean, Atlantic 10. That's a good basketball conference right there. If you're looking at the mid majors, I'd say that's the cream of the crop for the mid major conferences. And like you said, Archie Miller. I mean, it just seems like he always, he gets the players he wants at Dayton, and he knows what to do with them. I mean, it's not the first time they've been ranked before, and they've made tournament runs previously. I mean, 11 seed a few years ago, they made a deep run. They're just one of those teams that they have the right guy at the helm, and with the right guy at the helm, anything is possible.
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, A10, that's no cupcake of a league. Sure, it's not a major conference, but we still have VCUs of the world, St. Joe's, Richmond, URI. There's some good, solid basketball teams that have made runs before, and I certainly think that there will be teams from the A10 making deep runs once again. VCU, that famous Final Four run out of nowhere. Dayton, as you mentioned, only 2 years ago, they made the Elite Eight, eventually lost to Florida in a tough game, but they made it as a 12 seed, I think, or an 11 seed. So the Dayton Flyers, even though their team is better this year, they're still not getting the attention that they deserve. I can see them making a run. Even though people may not recognize it, I'm going to watch out for it, Peter.
Now you got them on my radar now as well.
Yeah. So now we kind of addressed the two teams on the rise. So now, who's the team on the fall for you, Peter? Who's declining?
I mean, Duke, they're 2-4 in their last 6 games, and I think they're 16-6 overall, which is good as a tournament level. But I mean, I think the real problem here is Emil Jefferson is not back. I mean, the senior big man. I mean, they are 7-5 without him in the lineup. Now he's not going to be a guy who's going to get 20 and 10. He's no Jahlil Okafor.
Yeah.
We'll say that right now. But I mean, if you're looking at guys who is just a good teammate, a good glue guy, a guy you want to have on your roster, that's Emil Jefferson. And you can tell, he was probably the one guy Coach K would say, I cannot lose. And they lost him, and you can see them struggling.
Yeah, certainly. With so much parity in college basketball, as we've talked about, you need a junior or senior playing on the floor for that veteran leadership, because now Duke is stuck with Grayson Allen, a sophomore. Sure, he's had some experience, but not as much as other teams. And then you also have Brandon Ingram, another freshman, Kennard, another freshman. So Emil Jefferson, yeah, he might not put up the biggest numbers, but for what he does on the court, especially on the road, you kind of want a big leader, and Plumlee can't do it all. He's just a big man. You sometimes need that. You need that help and that second figure on the court. So I couldn't agree more. Emil Jefferson is underratedly a huge part of that team. With him, I think it would be much better. And for Duke standards, yeah, they are declining, 16-6, and they're only 2-4 in the ACC. So I don't know if they're going to be able to make another run in the tournament, Peter.
I mean, hopefully, Emil Jefferson. It's 7 weeks now he's been out. Coach K says there's been some improvement, but really, I wonder is that they have a McDonald's All-American big man in Chase Jeter, a freshman, on the bench, and he's only averaging 7.7 minutes a game. And maybe, I don't know if he's ready for the big time, but I mean, you gotta give the guy a chance to, prove himself.
Yeah, and certainly, if the players that he's playing now aren't working, why would you not give him a shot? You have nothing to lose. It's now or never. You can't afford to lose 4 more games in the ACC. ACC is a tough conference. They still have 2 games against Duke, one against NC State, Louisville, Pitt, Syracuse. Those are tough games. You got to win. It's put your pedal to the metal. It's mid-February. March is slowly coming around. Come on, Coach K. I mean, I trust Coach K. He certainly knows what he's doing. But yeah. I don't know. The Duke Blue Devils just don't seem to be the same as of old.
I mean, I think you made a great point earlier that, you need that veteran leadership. I mean, even if you look back to that Kentucky team from a couple years ago with Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd Gilchrist, they had Darius Miller coming off the bench, a senior leader on that team. And even Terrence Jones, an experienced sophomore who was on the starter on the Final Four team the year before. So just don't think that you can have freshman, sophomore without experience just come in and do well. I mean, even Grayson Allen, the sophomore, he didn't play a lot last year. He had the big game, in the championship game. But other than that, I mean, Grayson Allen pretty much.
Yeah, and if you look at the teams 1 through 5, Kansas, Oklahoma, Iowa, Maryland, all those guys, they have 3 to 4 juniors and seniors starting. They're not Buddy Hield. He is not a young player. Selden, Perry Ellis, Jared Uthoff, I'll mention later, but those are all seniors, and it's no coincidence that they're in the top 5. So, as we mentioned, there's so much parity. You need that veteran leadership. It doesn't come up on the box score, but it really does a lot for your team, the chemistry, how you play, how you deal with adversity. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Duke is certainly on the decline, and hopefully they make a run, but don't be shocked if they keep falling.
Yeah, I mean, so what's your team then that's also, falling down the mountain?
This might come as a shock to some, but I actually have the 15th ranked Baylor Bears as a team on the decline. It may not be evident as Duke, as they're certainly having a bad year, but Baylor, hear me out right here, all right? Baylor, this may come as a shock to some, but Baylor, they're ranked 15, they're 17-5, 6-3 in the Big 12, all right? They just lost an unranked Texas team at home. You can't be losing to an unranked Texas team at home. That's interstate for recruiting purposes, but that does a lot in your locker room, like confidence level. That can't happen. They're unranked. Baylor, if you're ranked and you want to sustain that ranking, you got to beat that team. Not to mention their next game on the road at West Virginia. That's a tough place to play. On the road, coming back after a loss. So I think that they're going to fall into a 2-game losing streak. And not to mention, their future games include Iowa State, a rematch with Texas, this time on the road, Texas A&M, Kansas, Oklahoma. The Big 12 is such a good conference. If you have to play the best teams now twice, once away, there's not a bright future there, Peter.
I mean, I agree with you on that point. In such, a smaller conference than these more behemoths of like the ACC with 14 teams, and only with like 10, you're going to have to play these teams multiple times. It's going to have an effect on their records. Now, Baylor, as you said, they're no Oklahoma, they're no Kansas, they're no West Virginia. I mean, these are games they can lose. And it always seems like with Baylor, it's promising, they have players. I always remember that team, Perry Jones III a couple years ago. There was a lot of talent on that squad. But for some reason, I feel like with Baylor, it just never pans out. And there's always something that's holding them back. And that's why I agree with you. They can be on the decline real quick.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more what you said before. Their toughest games are only ahead of them. So that makes that Texas loss so much more important, Because now they have to go on the road at Kansas. Nobody wins there. Kentucky couldn't even win there. Bill Self has more conference championship wins than home losses in his career. That's incredible. He only has 9 losses in his whole career in Kansas. So, yeah, Baylor, they have Oklahoma ahead of them, Iowa State, Kansas. I just see them on the decline. As you mentioned, there always seems something to be holding them back. Not to say they might not make the tournament, but I just think we might see an early exit like last year. Last year they were a 3 seed, got upset by Georgia State and Hunter in that big 3. So I can see them having an early exit once again this year, Peter.
I mean, with Baylor, I feel like it's always an early exit. I mean, when's the last time you said, oh, Baylor, Sweet 16, oh, Elite 8? I mean, I can't recall. It just feels like they're always underachieving. And, it's sad to see because they have talent. It's a good team. It's just, it never really seems to have all the pieces in the puzzle fit.
Yeah, so we kind of mentioned 2 teams each who we think, one rising, one falling. So who's a player to watch, Peter?
Now, this guy, out of Oakland, the Golden Grizzlies, it's the 5'9" point guard, Khalil Fielder. This guy, a junior, he has 25.2 points per game. That's 4th in the country. He's got 9 assists per game. That's 1st in the country. I mean, he's averaging 8.6 times free throw attempts per game. He gets to the line. I'm just going to call it one game. A couple weeks ago at Green Bay, he had 29 points, 14 assists, went to the free throw line 22 times.
Wow, that's incredible.
Converted 19 of them. I mean, you just look at a guy like that. What negative thing can you say about him?
Yeah, and we're in the age where successful NBA point guards, they're not always coming from the biggest school. Steph Curry went to Davidson. Damian Lillard went to Weber State. So, yeah, kids like that can certainly succeed not only in NCAA, but also in the NBA in the future.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, this guy, he's probably not on a lot of radars. I mean, he's undersized. He's 5'9", so, but you know who else is 5'9"? A Boston Celtics point guard, Isaiah Thomas. I mean, these guys, we always say, height's a big factor. But these smaller guys, they can make an impact, at the next level. Maybe not they're going to be starting, but, off the bench, a guy who can shoot and distribute, tough to find these days.
Yeah, and if Oakland could somehow find their way in the tournament, that would certainly catch more people's eyes as national attention. But if not, if he puts up solid numbers, he can find himself going pretty high or doing pretty well in the NBA draft.
Yeah.
So that's who Peter mentioned as one player to watch. For me, I have Jared Utoff of the Iowa Hawkeyes. All right, Jared Utoff. If you look at him, his looks might be a little bit deceptive because, first off, he's got a weird-looking face. I don't know if you've ever seen him, but he's not tall. He's 6'9". He's a small forward. He's not a big, strong guy. He's kind of pretty skinny for a small forward. But let me tell you this. The Iowa Hawkeyes are ranked 5th in the nation. It is all thanks to senior small forward Jared Utoff. And I'll tell you why. Jared Utoff averages 18.6 points per game, 6.3 rebounds, and 3 blocks. He's a small forward. 3 blocks? That's huge. That's one side. That's only one side. That's defense. 18.6 points a game is great. I watched one of the games recently. This might be a bit of a stretch, but he reminds me a lot of Ray Allen. I'll tell you why. First, second, the team that I saw, Purdue, played man-to-man against them, and the way he's such a good three-point shooter that they face guard him so closely that they have to set multiple screens to get him open. And he's constantly running around, moving, keeping the defender guessing where he's going to go. But in the first half, he went 5 for 5 from 3. He's such a good three-point shooter. And not to mention, Purdue's player that was guarding him, Raphael Davis, won Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year last year. So that's incredible to me. And not to mention, also, 5 for 5, that was only in the first half. He finished the game with 25 points and then 21 points because he played Purdue twice. So to put up numbers twice against a top-ranked team, one of the best defensive players in the country, that caught my eye. And Iowa Hawkeyes, they're ranked 5th in the nation thanks to Jared Utoff.
I mean, we're talking about teams that go under the radar. That's Iowa right now, number 5. But it's good that we point out some of these guys on these teams because, a lot of people, out there are going to be like, oh, Iowa, I don't know anybody on Iowa.
Iowa has more than the Caucasus people.
Utoff, I mean, he's obviously a high-quality player. And I think the real key here is the blocks that you mentioned. I mean, a good defender, he's got the length, obviously. And if he can, at the 3 spot, that's, putting up Anthony Davis level blocks. I mean, when you face him up against a Denzel Valentine, you could have him probably guard Rashid Suleiman from Maryland.
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys who come to just in the Big Ten tournament who you're gonna need to, keep in check to have a good chance of winning. He's the type of guy you want on the floor.
Yeah, and also he's only to mention his other talent on the other side of the ball on offense. He's only scored single digits once this year. That's 24 out of 25 games scoring double digits. That's incredible to me. Also, not to mention, in addition, at Iowa State in Hilton Coliseum, one of the toughest places to play, their arch rival, he scored 32 points. That's a solid ball club. That caught my eye. He should be getting more national attention, in my opinion. They're ranked number 5. I don't understand how he isn't. 18 points, 6 boards, 3 blocks. He does it on both ends. He's shutting down Denzel Valentine. He's scoring against the best players in the nation. So I don't understand how he's not getting more attention nationally, and I hope that will change. Hopefully Iowa can make a deep run. He can lead them on both sides of the ball. So hopefully he will get that more national attention.
I mean, I can definitely see Iowa making a run this year. I mean, with all this parity, you have a guy like that. You just have the good, foundation that they currently have with that program. I mean, they were coming to the season as a relative unknown. To go from that to 5, I mean, I don't care who you are. That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. And Iowa, they've been a talking point of the nation. The Caucasus. Also, they were ranked very high in football, causing controversy. Ranked very high in basketball now. Fred McCaffery has done a great job with the Iowa Hawkeyes, ranked atop of the Big Ten Conference. So yeah, they can hopefully make a run in the tournament. Jared Utoff, Peter Jackson, players to name. So yeah, for me, basketball, it's starting to pick up, Peter.
It really is.
Yeah, we're in mid-February, so we're going to see the conference tournament. Teams are going to start to play each other twice, as we mentioned before. games are going to become closer, I believe, and the star players are really going to take it to the next level.
I can't agree with you anymore. I mean, this is when it really starts to heat up. Rivalry weeks is coming in a couple weeks. The big games are coming. This is when beginning of February, end of January, dies down a little bit. Then this is when it really starts picking up. When the big games start to happen.
All right. Well, give me 2 teams that you think can make the Final Four.
I mean, I'll go UNC. I mean, Marcus Page is a great leader, a little bit of a down year, but I mean, he's still a guy I would love to have run my team. And Bryce Johnson has just come out of his shell this year. I mean, he's had it in him.
Yeah.
I know he said Coach Williams has challenged him to reach that Tyler Hansbrough level of effort. And I think you can see he may not be getting it all the time, but he's getting there a lot of time. You can tell, not just from the box score, but if you watch him play, you can definitely tell.
Yeah, and certainly when Marcus Page was hurt with that wrist, he certainly stepped up. He had a couple. I think in 5 games he scored 96 points or something incredible like that. So he stepped up in multitude of ways. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'll go. You know what? I'll go with Iowa. My boy Jared Utoff is going to lead the Iowa Hawkeyes to a Final Four run. They're going to catch the eye of the nation. They're going to become relevant on a national scale. I wouldn't be surprised if they squeak their way into the national championship. One more team, Peter.
Other conference mates in Maryland. I don't know. I've been high on this team all year. I think Melo Trimble is the best point guard in the nation. I think I would love to have him if I was any coach. Him behind Ben Simmons would be the first player I'd choose to start a team. I mean, Davis Diamond Stone's a good player, and I think Rasheed Suleiman, coming from Duke, has the experience, and that man has a chip on his shoulder to leave the way he did, and then his team wins a national championship. I mean, that's gotta hurt, He's gotta, feel something, and I think when that tournament time comes around, he's gonna be the man who steps up.
Yeah, I think he might do a Shabazz Napier or a Kemba Walker type run. Mark Turgeon's squad, they're usually very strong. Again, this year, they're very, very good. And yeah, a team composed of Melo Trimble, Jake Layman, Diamond Stone, Rasheed Suleiman. They have some veterans, they have some young guys. It's a good mix. And yeah, Maryland, I can certainly see them in the Final Four. I couldn't agree more, Peter. And my team, my second team that can make a Final Four run, this might surprise some people. I'll go with Villanova. Villanova, every year, they're atop of the Big East. But Jay Wright just never seems to be able to do it in tournament time. But I think this year is different. I'll tell you why. Ryan Arcidiacono, he's a 4-year starter. He's a senior now. He's been through the early losses. Last year at NC State, a couple years ago back, they were a 2 seed. They lost in the second round. But I think this year, this could be the year. Josh Hart, the shooting guard, he's been unreal on both ends of the ball. Nathan Achefu, the big man from somewhere in Africa. So they have Arcidiacono, a starter. Josh Hart, he's deadly from 3-point. And Achefu from Africa. They have a big guy. They have all the right pieces, in my opinion. And Jay Wright's a good coach. He doesn't get enough credit. They always seem to go out early. This year is different for me, for Villanova.
I think Villanova is a very good team. But you said it, for some reason, just something happens during tournament time. And if you take out the 1 year, 6 years ago, 2009, when they made that deep run, I mean, they really have struggled to, really reaffirm and reach that place again. Now, this year, you're right, Diacono is a senior. I mean, that man is, one of the best in the country, just, with composure and just keeping himself, in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw, last year, he'd rough it up with some guys. I think they really, again, talking about chips on his shoulder, they probably, feel a little, underappreciated, coming from the Big East, no slouch of a conference, but because I think they're not football, it gets a little bit, lost in the wayside. And I think because of that, they can make a run this year. I'd like to see them do it too.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be interesting. So, to recap, I have Dayton Flyers on the rise in college basketball. Peter has Wisconsin on the rise in college basketball. Hope they can make the tournament. Surprisingly, Duke is on the fall, according to Peter. And for me, I had the Baylor Bears. player to watch, Jared Utoff, your player to watch.
Khalil Fielder.
Khalil Fielder, see, I don't even know his name, but he'll be on the rise. And I think that Villanova and Iowa can make the Final Four, and Peter thinks Maryland and UNC can make the Final Four. Stay tuned. Hope you enjoy.